Hello, I'm J. Thomas Brown. The Land of Three Houses begins in the late 1700s in the Tohickon Valley in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. When William Sterner leaves the valley on a quest for wealth, he travels to Livorno, Italy during the Napoleonic Wars and makes some mistakes along his way. He must learn what really matters in life from his Lenape friend, Charles Durham. Only the healing power of love can save him. I'd like to read a selection from one of the scenes in the book. Charles Durham, William Sterner's Lenape friend, has a Native American name of Tohickon, and he visits the Indian cave. The Indian cave is an actual cave that's now on the bottom of Lake Nockamixon. Time doesn't exist there in the boulder-strewn woods. The ancient moss-covered stones had been there since the Creator scooped out the valley with the glaciers. The first people had moved in 10,000 years ago, and though only a handful remained, they still held claim to the land by name and spirit. Charles walked silently through the woods until he came to the cave. It pushed up out of the earth like the head of an old man with a great beaked nose and thin, drawn lips. The head looked ancient, its eyes black holes boring upward into the sky, a gateway between the inside of the earth and our world. He hadn't seen it since he was a boy, and stopped for a moment. He suddenly recalled the dream he had told to Mary and realized this was the same cave. He looked around and listened to the birds and light rustling sounds from the forest floor. Continuing on, he came to a plant with a pinch of tobacco placed in a hole beside it, so he knew he was close to the Nenpicky's place. When he looked up, she was standing in front of him. She was older than she looked. Her hair was still dark and straight. "I am Nucci. Sometimes they call me Old Maggie," she said with a laugh. "Just Maggie would suit you better. I am Tohickon. You are a clever charmer, so you have found me. Are you hungry? Come, have something to eat with me." Charles wasn't hungry, but thought it would be wiser to accept. He followed her into the cabin, a one-room log building. The original roof had been replaced with saplings lashed together and covered with bark. The inside was clean and dry. Herbs hung from poles set in the earth floor and from the ceiling. She handed him a bowl and filled it with stew as he sat cross-legged on the floor. He set a pouch of tobacco beside her, and when she sat down, "It is good, Nucci, thank you. So, why have you come?" "My friend is very sick. His leg is crushed and infected. It won't heal unless you can help him. The white doctor has tried, and it has only gotten worse." "So your friend is a Shewanok. Did you come on your own, or did he ask you?" "He asked me to come when I told him about you. He is a good Shewanok." "So you say." "There are some good ones." "So you say, but I will still help you anyway. I will need time to prepare. I can come tomorrow." "Thank you, Nucci." Charles had hoped it could have been sooner, but knew it was not something to argue about. He started back, carrying bunches of cattail and puccoon she had given him for John's wound. It was mid-afternoon when he reached the cave. Many years had passed since he had been inside as a boy, but he remembered climbing up and entering through the eyes. Inside was a chamber that opened to a floor about 15 feet wide and a ceiling 12 feet in height. About 30 feet back, the chamber turned to the left and became a passage that descended down into the earth. He had followed it as far as he could until he was blocked by a huge slab of rock that had fallen from the ceiling. He had almost forgotten about it. His attention was on the giant head sticking out of the earth, and not on the sudden absence of sound in the forest. Close by, over the invisible border where the estates of Bartholomew and Nouse met, McDone crouched behind a fallen tree, slowly cocking the hammer of his long rifle. He had been hunting and spotted Charles passing through the woods on his way to old Maggie's cabin and had lain in wait, hoping Charles would come back the same way. As Charles came around the side of the giant boulder, he squeezed the trigger, hitting him just below the heart. Charles felt the thud of the lead ball when it hit, then heard the sound of the shot. The air rushed out of him, and he was lying on the ground looking up, and everything was going faster and faster. MacDone stood over him suddenly with a drawn knife, which he then put back in its sheath. "No need to finish you off. Got you good," Doane said, feeling for a pulse. He left him there by the side of the cave. Later, Charles wondered if he had been sleeping and got up on his feet. He looked around in the twilight and started running back toward Maggie's cabin. He was so light, he felt like he could run forever without stopping. The door to the cabin was open. He went inside and stood beside her by the fire. She saw his shadow and looked at him sadly. "Tohickon, what have they done to you?" He was confused when he tried to speak. No sound came out. "Come with me," she told him. He followed her through the woods until they came to the cave. She stooped through one of the eyes in the old man's head and entered. "Come," she said. He followed her down into the earth, but this time it was much brighter than he remembered it to be. When they reached the point where the great stone slab had fallen, it was gone. As they made their way along, the passage opened on one side, and the walls began to glow. Continuing downward, it opened up on one side and became a craggy ledge. The ledge narrowed, and after a few 100 feet more, they came to a flat area with a balcony-like balustrade of stalagmites. A fragrant breeze came from below. "Look, Tohickon." He peered down over the ledge from behind the natural balusters. Nothing can do justice to what was below, for there is a limitation to the power of words. Beneath them lay a vast world stretching as far as the eye can see, with flowing streams, verdant valleys, and fields where people from all the ages congregated at their leisure. The roof of the endless cavern glowed with a light more brilliant than the sun of the world above. "Welcome home," she said.